Good afternoon, Vincent. So thank you so much today, for doing this session on heat wave and nutrition, and then and also, sharing your expertise, on this topic. So I'm going to pass the floor to you, and then you may start anytime when you are ready. Yeah, and thank you so much again for doing this session. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Prof, for this opportunity. My name is Vincent Adocta Awuuh. I am a HCPC-registered dietitian, currently residing in Bristol, in the UK, but I've also practiced in Ghana before coming to the UK. This is a very good opportunity to present on this important topic, um, heat wave and nutrition. As temperatures continue to rise around the world due to climatic changes, heat waves are becoming more frequent and more intense. While many of us may think of heat as simply an uncomfortable weather condition, it can have serious effect on our health, particularly when it comes to our hydration, nutrition, and then more particularly, most vulnerable groups in society.
Okay. Next slide, is that? Okay.
Yeah,
Do you
so
want?
today we'll be looking at, in this session, we'll be looking at how heat strains the body. And then we also go ahead to look at daily fluid requirements and how to check whether you are within your fluid limits or not by looking at certain features within yourself. You also look at food and drinks that help or hinder our hydration process. And we also look at extra care for vulnerables in society, like children and people with chronic conditions, as well as adults. And then we look at some early warning signs and when to seek for help when the need arises.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's recent literature that indicates an increase in heat-related deaths, particularly among the elderly, 63%, and all deaths attributed to um, annual heat-related stand at around somewhere 546,000. And there is also literature that indicates an increase or rise in acute chronic kidney injuries when temperatures rises above 25 degrees Celsius. This makes it more important that we pay more attention to this particular period because it presents with so many health challenges.
Oh.
So let's start by looking at how heat affects our body in the first place. Um, Following an increase in heat, there is increase in sweating, and this leads to loss of fluid from the body, as well as some important electrolytes like potassium and sodium. Also, when there is so much heat, what it implies is that many people often decline in appetite and they are not able to drink as much or eat as much they actually required. So together, these affect the risk of dehydration and heat illnesses, making hydration and food choices very critical when you are experiencing these heat waves.
Mm.
So want to share some essential facts as how we can be able to meet our hydration needs or our fluid needs. So generally, the general recommendations are often that you need around 2 liters of water or fluid per day, but this can vary depending on activity one is engaged in and the weather condition or the environment in which one found him or herself. And the general rule is often that you need about 25 to 35 mils of water per kilogram body weight. So for instance, if you are an adult and you're weighing, say, 70 kg, by this mathematics, mean that you'll be needing within the ranges of 1.75 to 2.45 liters of water per day on a normal weather condition. But as I said, as temperatures, as the environment, as your activity changes, there's the need for you to get more hydrated to be able to meet your fluid requirement. And there are certain indicators that you can look out for to know whether you are getting dehydrated or you have met your fluid requirement or not. And some of these simply can be the color of your urine, where a pale stray urine indicates that you are good, you are within your hydrated limit. And once your urine become darker, then it means that you need to drink as soon as possible. Also, dry mouth, dizziness, headache are all signs of dehydration. That when you begin to feel any of these or sense any of these, then you need to go in for drink. And also less urinating. If you are not taking, if you are not urinating frequently, it means that you are not drinking enough. So less urinating, less than 4 to 6 hours, can indicate that you are not getting enough fluid, enough water. So you need to, as soon as possible, get yourself hydrated. So let's look at food aspect. What do we need to eat around this time, around when there are heat waves? It's so important to choose water-rich foods and fluids. For example, watermelon, which you all know are very high in water content, cucumber, and for your proteins, you need to go in for something like phase beans. These have lower metabolic heat, versus maybe going in for higher fatty food and fried foods. These during metabolism or during digestion and the metabolism process, heat is often produced. So it is good you go in for less lighter food instead of going in for heavy and fried food. So what I'm advising here is that you need to limit fried and very salty food and keep portioning to smaller sizes. And also you need to limit the intake of alcohol and high sugar drink, as these can poorly hydrate your body. And especially going in for sugar drinks, you can end up having a lot of energy pile up in your body. So there's a need for you to reduce the intake of alcohol and other uh, sugary drinks. So there are certain groups of people that are more particularly vulnerable when it comes to this period, this heat wave period. So looking at people like adults, children and infants, as well as people who are battling chronic conditions like diabetes, kidney diseases. These are people that whose systems are already being compromised. And if there is more dehydration, it can make the situation to become worse. It can worsen the situation. So there's a need for more particular attention to be given to these people, because most of these people, they are on medication, and some of the medications, like maybe diuretics, can increase the frequent urination, frequent loss of water from the body. So there's a need for continual replenishing that water. So for elderly people, there's a need for support to be given to them, as well as children, because they need someone to be able to care for them. And as I said, people with chronic conditions like cardiovascular diseases, kidney, diabetes related conditions, raise the risk of rapid deterioration during heat waves. Hence, there's a need for more particular attention to be given to them. So during heat period, there is also the need for you to ensure food safety, because most bacteria grow and thrive in this condition or this environment. So when there's heat, it provides conducive environment for certain bacteria to grow. So there's a need to refrigerate leftover food promptly as soon as possible, because, but as I said, bacteria can multiply faster in food left out in the warm conditions. And then you don't need to leave cooked food sitting outside for extended period, especially as bacterial, especially at barbecues or out when you go out to eat, like in picnics. And also making sure transporting food should be in frozen containers so that they can be protected from this bacterial growth that can end up contaminating your food and leading to illnesses. So not just food and water alone, but beyond food and fluid, there is the need for other measures to also be looked at. For example, make sure your home is cooled, um, ventilated at night, and you close blinds and windows during peak heat if outdoor air is hotter. And then you also make sure that you protect infants and children. And for those who travel with their children in vehicles or in cars, there's a need never to leave children in parked vehicles during this heat wave period, because it can be more fatal when children are left in vehicles alone. So we're also saying that you need to stay alert and limit exposure. If you can stay as much as possible in cooler environment, there's a need for you to stay within that environment instead of going out into the peak heat. And then you also make sure that in the clothing you wear light, loose-fitting clothing that cool, and take cool showers, and then make sure that you wet your skin if that is possible. That can be able to help you to reduce the temperature and the heat that may be generated within your system.
Mm.
So to sum up, I'll recommend that you don't need to wait until you feel thirsty before you start drinking, because sometimes before you feel thirsty, your body is already in dehydration mode. So there's a need to have regular drinking, and you don't wait to become extreme thirsty to take a whole bulk of water. So you need to drink as frequent as possible as the days goes by, and don't wait until you're extremely thirsty before you drink. And then you choose, in terms of your meals, choose smaller, lighter meals instead of going for heavy meals. And as I said earlier on, instead of going in for fatty fried foods, you go in for lighter and foods that are rich in water. Like we said, like salads, watermelon, cucumber, these are rich in water content. And you also need to keep, if you are someone who take coffee, so you can keep it in moderation and limit alcohol and sugary drinks. And we need to support elderly people, children, as well as people who are battling chronic conditions, so that they will not be able to have deteriorated conditions as this climate changes, and as heat waves are becoming more rampant, and as we have seen in literature, more deaths are related to these rising temperatures around the globe. So there's a need for us to pay attention to our diets, pay attention to our environment, where we find ourselves, and the food that we eat, so that we'll be able to protect ourselves from these heat waves. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Okay, thank you so much, Vincent. I mean, like, so it's it's a good sharing that you have done, especially talking about this very important topic, heat wave and nutrition. Do you have any final message that you want to share, with the audience? Yeah.
Yes. So as I said, so this is as temperatures around the world, there's climate change around the world. We shouldn't just look at the discomfort that the heat brings to us, but we should look at the health implications that comes with this heat wave. So we pay more attention to our nutrition, pay more attention to our hydration, and pay more attention to what we eat, so that we will not be able to complicate ourselves in the course of this heat wave period.
Yeah, that's well said. Okay, so I'm going to start the recording now. Okay, and thank you so much, Vincent, for doing this